Welcome back, listeners, to HTO. I hope you're well. We're all looking forward to the domestic season now after the European competition that was and that wasn't. So actually real football returns soon. I'm joined as ever by Andrew, but we're also joined today by the founder and editor of London Economic, but more importantly, far more importantly, the author of The Great Pie Revolt, a gastronomic guide to the Premier League and EFL. That's right, we're talking to Jack Peat about all things football, all things football at matches, food at match day. Oh, I'm looking forward to this one. I'm just salivating, Andrew, salivating. You looking forward to this chat?
Very much so, yeah. I've got my crisps here, got my beer going. So all I need is a nice little bratwurst hot dog, and then we're away.
Well, we'll get onto foods of choice. Jack, welcome to HTO Football. I hope you're well.
Yeah, and I'm delighted to be introduced as the founder and editor of the London Economic. More importantly, someone who gets a kick out of writing about football and food. So that's been a long time coming.
That is far more important, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It absolutely is. Yeah. Economics can do one when it comes to sort of like having a good pie and watching football. I mean, I've been waiting for this all my life.
Completely. For the listeners tuning in, what's your sort of 30-second elevator on the Great Pie Revolt, and then we can sort of dive into it a little bit and sort of our own memories of football grub before matches.
Yeah, well, it's a book in two parts, really. It's a gastronomic guide to the Football League. So it's the best places to eat and drink your way around the 92. But it's also, it's more importantly, I would say, about the understated connection between football and drink and football and food and drink. So it's a two-part story, really.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, I mean, and you're right though. What a connection there is. I think if you think back to match days, whether they be in yesteryear or more recently, they're just so intrinsically tied to having a drink before the game, grabbing a bite before the game. What's your football background, Jack? Who do you support? Where'd you grow up? What's your earliest football memories?
Well, yeah, so I actually grew up in between Leeds and Castleford, but I'm actually a Doncaster Rovers fan. It's a sort of a long-term family thing, and I've been following Doncaster for as long as I can remember now, and been fortunate to sort of being able to travel through various different leagues as a Doncaster Rovers fan. When I first sort of was properly supporting them, we were a low league conference outfit, and we had a remarkable ride up through League Two, League One, and into the Championship, where we stayed for 5 years. And then we've sort of been bouncing between League One and Two ever since. I think League One is probably arguably our equilibrium. That's where we're comfortable. But you know, if we consider Championship being our Premier League and League Two, where we're probably slightly underperforming, but it does give you a really good sort of view across the leagues when you're a fan of a club like Doncaster, where you do tend to bounce a bit.
Yeah, and you get a whole picture of obviously the food culture across the leagues as well, Jack. So what in terms of where Doncaster are at, what's the Michelin star average at that level then?
Oh, well, so let me dispel a myth. The higher you go up doesn't mean the better you go in terms of food.
Definitely not.
The best places that I've been are the most surprising places. Your South Ends that have just been relegated, like really regretfully. Barrow, Forest Green, you know, like you really do get some really good sort of, like, you get the places that really pride themselves on certain foods, and because of that, they, you know, the locality sort of really comes through. You know, Oldham's another great example where you can go there and you really get a feel for Oldham, whereas if you go to some of the bigger clubs, it goes amiss because it's all about sort of like, we're big and we don't need that sort of connection, you know. So oh God, if there was a Michelin star level, you might well put it in League One. You know, you could definitely make an argument for that.
What's all right? Come on then, gents. What's your current, and then we'll delve back into sort of memory bank. But what's your current gastronomy experience when you go for a football match?
Well, for me, it's and certainly inspired by what I was writing about. It's it's really about seeing what's good in that region. You know, the book was largely about one particular match day where it was an opening day of the season and it was as sunny as it is right now, and sort of you've been really excited about it. You've had sort of a few months of no football. It wasn't a sort of World Cup Euro summer, so you're really looking forward to getting back in. And we were taking a train down to Southend, and instead of getting off from Southend, we stopped at Leigh-on-Sea, where there's this sort of like lovely row of sort of seafood outlets. And
I think we know them.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. You get the cockles and the whelks and the oysters and the shrimp, and you eat, you know, you drink great local beer, and you sit by the Thames estuary and you sort of think, well, this is all right. And it's one of these, for me, and certainly what I'm trying to get across here is the perfect sort of pre-match thing is you get to half two and you go, oh, I've got to go to football now, you know, the thing that you came for, but then you sort of think, well, I quite happily stay here. And so, you know, definitely I'm all about sort of trying to get one of the local beers in, trying to get a bit of the food and stuff like that. And definitely that's what I've been talking about in this.
I'd probably go back, Tom, probably 2 decades now. Clock end at Highbury, get my Coke. To be honest, I was never actually a big. Thinking back now, I was more like getting a couple of bags of sweets before the game from the stall outside, getting a Coke in the stadium. Yeah, 2 bags for £1. And then when I used to go to Barnet, I used to go Underhill when they used to play there, and that's when I sort of dipped into the sort of burger market. But I'd say. I don't even know if the quality of them's changed. I just think they've always been good and bad burgers at football games. I think I don't think they're the best quality product you can get at football matches, but I always tend to go for it because of the convenience. Really, you're in the stands, it's in the box, and you can just tuck in. You know, whereas with like things like pies, we were talking about off air just before, Jack, that how they seem to be a little bit more. I find them a bit trickier to manage when I'm standing up with a pie. However, they do come up as very popular, don't they?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, burgers are a part of that quintessential smell, I think. With if you associate match days with anything, for me, when I was growing up on the terraces at Bellevue, like if you could put that smell into a sort of candle, I'd put a little bit of turf in there. I put a pack of Benson and Hedges, and I put burgers and onions. You know,
call it match day.
And that would literally smell, and maybe a bit of sort of like that horrible urinal smell because it was always too close to the toilets.
You're bang on. It's a bit like the you know when you've finished a fry up and actually it's the amalgamation of the egg, the brown sauce and the beans, all that sort of bit at the back, at the end, which is actually not just one specific flavour, but it's just that's just the brilliant bit of the breakfast. It's the same with the smell of the football. And you know, obviously the last 18 months has been hard for live events, and I miss that so much. You know, I'm a season ticket holder at Arsenal. I miss going and that sort of that verve, that energy that comes with the smell. You get off the train or wherever it may be. I think my earliest memories, sort of going as a family to Arsenal, we'd park at the Blackstock Road. There's like a school there, the Ambler Primary School, I think it was, that used to open its gates. It'd be a car park, and we'd trek towards the stadium, and we'd always stop in the same cafe. And this isn't a traditional football food at all, but I used to have spaghetti bolognese for my lunch before a 3 o'clock kickoff, because they used to pretend to be 3 o'clock back then, clearly, because there wasn't wall-to-wall TV, so they're always on at 3 o'clock. So we'd have our lunch in there at about 12:30, 1 o'clock. Obviously, probably a can of Coke or orange or something like that, and a spaghetti bolognese. And that was my first sort of taste of sort of pre-match. I think as we escalated, there's a really good Turkish restaurant called Yildiz on the Blackstock Road to going towards Arsenal, and that does really nice kebabs. And when we escalated to there, when we got a bit older, and our taste buds broadened slightly. But no, I think you're right. I think it's that everyone has their same favourite burger stand as well, or hot dog stall, even though essentially they're all the same. Let's be honest. Everyone has the same one that they go to repeatedly, and I think it's part of the traditions, isn't it? That's what it is.
Well,
yeah.
No, it's just such a big part of the day. Is the point? I think that if you're a football fan, have been for a long time, we're all fans because in part we love the game, and we can discuss that until we're blue in the face. But really we actually like the sort of the two and a bit hours and before and after, and that's the big thing really. There's 90 minutes on the pitch and there's 90 minutes either side of it, and actually accumulatively, like it's usually it's the bits that go around it that are just important. And you could say it for a lot of sports, cricket, rugby, it's all the same. We go out for a day out, and it's we all say that we're going to watch football, but really we're going to see the lads. We're going to go for a chat. We're going to catch up. We're going to see, we're going to eat some good food. We're going to drink some drink, and you're going to come back. And that whole experience is very wholesome, really. And we do it in the name of football, but that's only part of it.
How did you find the experience of sort of delving into the Premier League in your book, Jack? Because I feel that with this discussion, we almost have to separate, don't we? Like non-league is where you get your grub. Like, let's face it, like Premier League football is very different, isn't it? When you go to a Premier League game, what's on offer, it's not traditional anymore, is it? Let's face it.
Yeah. Well, so what the book's largely about is actually about not focusing on the ground. So actually it's about what's that place about and what can you get that's 5 minutes away, rather than rocking up to a ground and drinking a load of Fosters and in a plastic cup and drink and eating crap food. That's the revolt part, is that actually we don't need to do that. If you went sort of 5 minutes down the road, you get a really good pint of local beer with really good food that sort of like speaks of that. Because football fans are in this unique position where we're some of the most traveled people in the country. If you really stick at it, every other week you're going here, there, and everywhere. So to an extent, like I definitely found, there's a grandiose sort of thing about the Premier League that sort of like is for me, which I'm really trying to avoid that. There was part of me trying to, it was quite hard to get around that. But at the same time, it was really easy to find. It was, I think it's I couldn't believe how every one of the 92, barring maybe one or two, had this really interesting connection with food or drink, and it's an understated one.
Obviously, we want all the listeners to be reading the book, but have you got any stats that you could throw off the top of your head, or rough numbers about sort of how many tastings you had to do when writing the book? Any research you had to do?
How many inches gained on the waist belt? And
how many pies demolished across?
Well, put it this way: the book is obviously it's the full 92, and for each of the chapters, there's 3 recommendations for where to go to drink and 3 where to eat. I haven't got my calculator on me. But
I was going to say, I'm just going to whack it in now.
3 times 92. I mean, that's probably math that we should be able to do.
Well, 6 times 92, or 3 times 92 for drink and 3 times 92 for food.
Yeah, isn't it just shy of 300?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was, but talk about a labour of love. It wasn't
pretty impressive pie eating. But do you know who else would be good at that? Is Woking captain Josh Casey, a friend of mine, and I went to Arsenal with him one day, and he had 27 chicken nuggets in the sitting. And for an athlete that's captain of Woking FC, I always put him up on that, to have 27 chicken nuggets prior to a game. I thought that's punchy. But that was in the lovely Emirates, where they serve weird and wonderful, lots of different world foods. And it'd be interesting to get your take, Jack, on the way sort of food at football has kind of evolved as well. Yeah. I mean, if you look at that sort of American show element to it. Like I said, I mean, in the concourse at the Emirates, certainly where I sit, not with the proper fans, but in club level, you'll be getting sort of pulled pork, all these different world delicacies, which, don't get me wrong, is lovely and it tastes beautiful, but it's not quite football as you know it.
Yeah. I don't really want to do it to you, but the place that I said, as I just mentioned, the book's a lot about where to go that's around the stadium, and so it's sort of like telling people not to eat in stadiums in a way. But the one chapter that I would have said that doesn't deserve to be in those pages is actually Tottenham Hotspurs. The new Spurs ground, I just found to be an absolute wonder, and as painful as it might sound, it was everything that I think that football grounds could and should be moving forward. Where
it's been great to have you on, Jack.
Yeah.
We appreciate appreciate your time today.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
I just, but purely from a food and drink perspective, you mentioned the sort of American experience, and you're right to do so. People turn up to American grounds early for a reason. It's because that's where to go. You don't really get that. You wouldn't really get that here, where you say turn up to a ground 2 hours early and stay 2 hours late. But Spurs is sort of a bit of an outlier with that, because they sort of, have got this. I personally feel it's the right line of thinking, which is that people might pay £45 for a match day ticket or whatever it is at Spurs, and then they might pay £45 more if you put on the right experience for them before and after the game. So you can go and you can drink some local beer that's brewed on site. You can eat local pies that again, there's a bakery on site, and you can stay after in a pub environment, watch the late game, and there's live music and stuff like that. And I think that they're one of the outliers. And I was speaking to actually the guy who does the hospitality at Lord's Cricket Ground. He was like, that's what anybody who's involved in hospitality from any sports arena, they're looking at Spurs right now, because that's what you want. If you Lords is another good example. They
famously do the best lunches at the cricket, Lords.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
famously do.
Yeah, but they want the average everyday spectator to sort of eschew the local cafes and go to Lords and be in there early and get a full, get a fry up there. And they're also now saying, people don't just want to drink beer all day, we're trying to put wine on, we're trying to do local, they do local gins and stuff like that. It's massively changing, isn't it? Like people's palates are changing. What people like, we've got this great worldly cuisine that people are sort of used to in their everyday life. So why wouldn't you get that down at the football ground as well, especially if they want you to shell out a little bit more money for it?
And I guess that's all sort of the reason why the kind of narrative of the sort of pie tradition, Jack, is in danger, I guess, as a storyline. Really, where do you see the Great British Pie in terms of its links with the terraces in the coming years? Yeah,
well, I think that what I would say is in the same breath as everything else, they've got to do better. They've got to do more. So you've got this thing now outside of the Premier League, probably mainly, where the catering offering across the grounds is controlled by 2 or 3 companies, and that means you are getting. It's effectively this big banal brush that's gone across all football stadiums where you walk in, and whether you be in Middlesbrough or Plymouth or anywhere else, you're getting the same thing through the door. My personal view would be that that's not going to stick. I think that you need to be offering more. You need to be talking to local producers. You need to be talking. We're in the midst of a craft beer local microbrewery revolution, and yet you walk through the terraces at Keatmoat Stadium in Doncaster, and you're not going to get Doncaster Brewery. You're going to get Carlin, and you're going to get something else, and that's the same if you go to Burton, the capital of brewing, and Carlin's actually brewed there, so I'll let them go get up with that. But you see my point, which is that I think that clubs need to be doing more to work with these local suppliers and get more of that included as the match day experience. Otherwise, you'll get people turning up at 5 to 3.
Yeah,
and that's a lot. That's a big missed opportunity.
5 past, which is a problem. Do you know what I mean as well?
Yeah.
Well, I think this is you could say the same with businesses in general, couldn't you? In light of COVID, really, like small businesses having to kind of rethink how they do things, really. Well, also big businesses as well. But just a little quote here from Kidderminster Harriers' Twitter account a few years back. Barcelona have Messi, Real Madrid have Ronaldo, and Kidderminster have our pies. It's probably their best moment on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but this is where non-league grounds. I was at Peckham FC last weekend, Peckham Town, and they've got Brick Brewery, local Peckham ale, and they've got a load. Everything's about the community, and everybody knows about Dulwich Hamlet. Dulwich Hamlet down the road do the exact same thing, where it's all about the community, and that pulls. They're getting silly amount of people through the door for sort of like certainly with Peckham, the level that they're at. They you might expect 60 people to turn up on a Saturday, and there's hundreds. And let's be real, they're not there just because because the quality of football is brilliant. They're there because you drink really good beer, and it's all about Peckham, and and with Dulwich you get some really good grub there as well, and it's the match day experience in full, and that's like Kidderminster have realised that's one way, and it's a big way of getting people through the door. And actually, people don't pay much through the door there, so why wouldn't you get them to pay 2 or 3 times more on the food and drink while you're there? Because most people would.
I know it's a bit of a it can seem like a bit of a juxtaposition, a bit of an oxymoron when you consider the traditional pie and pint. But I also wonder whether there's going to be like a big boom in sort of like health foods and stuff like that at football. Ultimately it's a sport. You look at the sort of like Ronaldo moving Coca-Cola away at the Euros, drink water. I also think, look at the model, which is obviously more than just health. It's about sustainability that Forest Green have taken. And I wonder if, like you said, local produce, healthy produce could really make, it would go well, wouldn't it? It really would.
But it's also as well, I think the whole ritual's going to change as well. Like the match day experience is very different now to it was when we were growing up. I mean, I guess this coincides with the whole sort of decline of pubs as well, in this country, where they're closing down left, right and centre. So in 10, 15 years, are we going to see that, that you meet up with your mate 2 hours before kickoff and go to the local pub? Like if it's not there, what does that look like? So I think the whole kind of day, doesn't it, as a fan will evolve.
Yeah. I think that the point about Forest Green is a really good one, which is that if that isn't if that doesn't resemble sort of like the changing tides in consumer demands, then what does? And obviously they've gone out there and they've run at it, and that's all they do. But I think that there's going to be a load of people that embrace vegan options, healthy options, and well done to them. But like also, let's just have a little shout out for local options. Why don't you get in people like next to the Oval? They get in. They've got a load of good curry spots next to them, so they get in like a local curry house. They put up a stand and they get them in to do it. At the Oval, they also have beefeater gin next to them. They get in them. They do stuff. Let's talk to communities like that's, for me, like the people that have got their ear to the ground in all of this are the local suppliers.
Yeah.
So that's where we need to be talking. That's what we need to be talking about, and those are the people that you need to be talking to. And in the interim, we can vote with our feet and make sure that we go to them directly, until football grounds sort their act out, because really they're missing a trick.
We obviously at HTO always like to do a bit of a counter-attack challenge with our guests. So we're going to put you under the pump today. So what we typically ask for is quick fire answers. And we'll throw some questions at you. Andy, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, let's go for it then. Ronaldo or Messi?
Oh, Messi.
Best pie in the Football League?
Oh, I'm going to do Spurs.
Jack's favourite pre-match meal?
Cockles and whelks on the outside Southend in Leon C. But I just can't top that. I loved it.
Does gravy or curry sauce belong on chips?
Yeah, I'm a Yorkshireman. You have to have something wet.
Is that yes to both or just gravy then?
It's yes to both, actually. You've got to have something wet.
Most expensive match day meal in the UK?
That you had, yeah.
Oh God. I would say that I've definitely been known to put, like, per head to pay something in the region of 20 quid for sort of like something before the game, but that's obviously outside the remit of sort of like your standard pie.
Yeah.
So posh.
We were going to ask the favourite ground to visit, but it might be the same answer. So we'll skip that one, and I'll just finish up with a
It's not actually, but
does it not go for it then? Favourite ground to visit?
Again, my favourite ground is actually Craven Cottage. I love Craven Cottage.
Lovely football ground. Yeah. And then, well, Jim, do you want to go with the favourite then, the household favourite?
Yeah, you've got 3 dinner guests, Jack, coming around for yours for beers and pizza. Football related, dead or alive, who are you inviting around?
God. Well, one of my absolute heroes is from on a music front is John Lennon. On a football front, Brian Clough, and on a cricket front, of course, it's Geoffrey Boycott. So those are the 3. It'd be lively.
Yeah, that'll be a nice evening.
Who's the chef then?
Well, I suppose I'd have to put something on.
Well, you've got the book, you're walking through the book. Give them something from each of those 92. Look, they've got 3 options to choose from across the 92.
We've got a tasting menu tonight, chaps. 92 courses.
Yeah. You've got 17 versions of the chicken balti pie. You've got 18 versions of the steak and kidney. We've got 47 of the chicken and mushroom. You can just go through them all. We've got some fish and chips. We've got a couple of vegan options in there. We've got the works. Look, we're really looking forward to the book. It's obviously available for pre-order on Waterstones. Is that correct?
Yeah, Waterstones, Amazon. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I believe, Andrew, we're going to be running a little comp, aren't we?
Yeah, we will be. Yeah, so we'll be giving a copy of Jack's book away. So keep your eyes on our Twitter at HTO Football for all the details on that. That will be dropping very shortly.
Fantastic stuff. Jack, before you sort of leave us, obviously, thank you very much for coming on. Was this a work of sort of a lifelong passion? You always wanted to talk about food, always wanted to talk about football, or are there more titles in the pipeline? What's next for your authorship?
The Great Burger Revolt.
Yeah. So when I first told my friends about the book coming out, they said, well, one of them's an Arsenal fan actually, and he said, well, I'll buy it when there's a European Super League version. And I said, well, if someone wants to pay me to go to Paris and Barcelona and wherever else, then I'd happily do it. But no, this has been like, it's the perfect synergy between my 2 big passions in life, and it's something that I think hasn't been touched upon. I think that connection between food and football is one that I'd hopefully like to explore more. I don't know through which avenue and I don't know how, but yeah, that's if that's my niche in the world of books and authorship, then it's
not a bad niche though, is it? If you can, I know you're clearly thinking about it there, ladies and gents. Jack's thinking, how can I basically take football, which I wasn't good enough at myself to play, but love it, and food, which I really love, and how can I make that into a career?
Yeah, I can eat food all day long. So 100%. I mean, and
if you find the answer to that question, let us know. Because I'll join you, whatever the business venture is.
I was going to say, maybe that's why you didn't make it.
If the career options are food and football coming together in one career option, it sounds like a really good one. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks,
and I'm really looking forward to giving the book a good read myself as well.
Good stuff. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
No worries. Ladies and gents, thanks for listening again. As ever, on at HTO Football, all your usual channels, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, the works. Check out our latest pods on all your platforms, Spotify, Apple, wherever you like to listen, we'll be there. And we'll speak to you soon.
Take care, guys.